The Caribbean Community, CARICOM, has officially concluded its 50th regular meeting of heads of government in St. Kitts and Nevis, bringing regional leaders together at a pivotal moment for the Caribbean. Held from February 24th to 27th, 2026, leaders debated a wide range of critical topics, including regional security, economic integration, climate resilience, migration, humanitarian assistance to Cuba, reparations, and the ongoing crisis in Haiti. Discussions on Haiti included renewed calls for free and fair elections by the end of 2026. CARICOM leadership also confirmed the coordination of humanitarian aid that is scheduled to be sent to Cuba within a month. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio attended the summit and participated in a closed-door session described as a brief but direct address to the Caribbean leaders. His presence drew significant attention, particularly in light of recent geopolitical developments, including the removal of Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela, airstrikes on boats in the Caribbean Sea, and increased political pressure and an oil embargo on Cuba from the Trump administration. Meanwhile, Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar delivered pointed and unapologetic criticism of CARICOM and certain regional leaders. Prime Minister Persad-Bissessar openly praised the United States government and the Trump administration, pledging to work closely with them in what she described as being in the best interest of Trinidad and Tobago. As the summit concluded, broader questions remained about CARICOM's unity in the face of global pressure and how assertively the bloc should defend its sovereignty on the international stage. During the closing press conference, journalists pressed leaders for clarity, accountability, and direction. What followed was a candid and revealing exchange. Here are the key highlights.
Good afternoon, everyone. Doris Polo, Guardian Media from Trinidad and Tobago. Now, the head table would have referenced the unity that was seen, acknowledging that leaders even dressed alike ahead of the retreat. But some leaders were actually absent, including Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar. And of course, at the opening ceremony, she was very critical of CARICOM as an organization, in fact, referencing that she sent a letter to the Secretariat and did not receive a response. That contradicts, to some extent, conversations around unity. What is the response to that?
Thank you very much for your question. Let me premise my answer by saying my objective and our objective is to build bridges and not light fires. And so we seek to look for opportunities of how we can build bridges. As I said initially, I would have said in other fora, that CARICOM is an integration movement of sovereign nations. And at any given point, you will hear differences of opinion on particular issues. I look at those as opportunities to strengthen the organization and to advance the organization, because those things will always happen. If you have an integration movement and there are no differences of opinion, I will question if the people are really committed to the movement. Because as I've said before, if you sit with yourself, you might disagree with yourself after 5 minutes of sitting silently with yourself. So there would be differences. There would be, and these are the things that we have to work through. But what happens is not, what is important is not the differences, because they necessarily have to happen. It's how we address the differences. Are we mature enough to understand that we'll have differences, to know that there will be difficulties, but so committed that we would work through them for the betterment of the organization, even with those differences, which we would expect and would necessarily happen, we were all still able to come and sit and sort to work through those differences. I had the opportunity to visit the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago before this. She was very gracious to me. She welcomed me with open arms. She took me to her office. She and I sat, we talked. She took me to Parliament. She made an excellent statement on CARICOM and her recommitment. Of course, just like everybody else, you might need to have some things work through. And then, so she was very gracious in all of that. So I would say that the organization is strong, the organization is together, and despite our differences, but I wouldn't say despite our differences, I would say, as the Prime Minister from Jamaica said, maybe our real strength is the fact that we have differences and we work through them as an organization. So I would say that definitely we are united, we are strong, irrespective of our differences. And we do not take our differences lightly. We work through our differences and we'll continue to work through them as a community.
I suspect the conventional view of the Caribbean community would be that the regional institutions function in unison and that there is commonality of purpose amongst all the countries and all the leaders. But I think members of the community should come to the understanding that we are existing in a different political reality and that optionality is important. You want to have a wide policy space where persons may take different positions based upon different interests, but that doesn't mean that the organization cannot function. It really means that the organization is far more sophisticated and has far more positions that it can take that, if strategically coordinated, can lead to the greater good and greater benefit of the organization. So I think the conventional unidimensional view on how integration movements should operate does not hold in this current state. And we should get used to it. Our commentators and our intellectuals and so forth should get used to it and guide the public in this way. Nevertheless, that it has been expressed that the organization, CARICOM, is important and it should be united and it should be strong. We here as leaders, we see this, we interpret the importance of this, and therefore we are here to, if for no other reason, show that we are all still supportive of the organization and that we can work with colleagues that have different views. Look, we are all aspiring to get to heaven, but we live here where there is conflict, where there are differences, and we have to get used to it. There's no sanitized view and perspective. This is real politics and real life in which there will be differences of opinion. It is how we come together, committed to the ultimate principles, with respect and deference to each other, and then we come to solutions. And I think that this CARICOM meeting has led us in this way.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman Peter Richards, CMC. In your opening statement, and even so far from what we've seen that's been going on since, I have not heard the word hate. I have not heard the word Cuba at all. Is that an omission, deliberate, or is it the mere fact that Cuba is not as important as you would have thought Caribbean people would want to know, given what's happening?
Right. Thank you very much for your question. Let me say that Cuba was discussed at this meeting. Not only was it discussed, I think in my opening statement, I would have mentioned it, and I think in other leaders' opening statement, it was mentioned as well. So it says here in the last paragraph, the matter of the challenging situation in Cuba was also discussed. All parties recognized, and this is our meeting with the Secretary of State, all parties recognize that there should be efforts to address the growing humanitarian crisis that's within CARICOM. The Caribbean community, cognizant of its very close relationship with both Cuba and the USA, and mindful of the extent to which the region can be negatively affected, is willing and to participate in any way that will redound to the benefit of the Cuban people while maintaining regional stability. I can go on further to say that the community has taken the decision as well to support humanitarian efforts in Cuba. That I can confirm as well. Framework that we are looking at. This is one of the things that was discussed with the Secretary of State. He and I co-hosted the meeting. And we are now in the initial stages of setting this up. We have agreed in principle with respect to it. CARICOM would put together a team of 3 who would then be the team to sit with the team from the United States of America to really flesh out what this framework would look like. So as the statement would have said, this will be a significant, I would say, this is significant in terms of creating that framework to move forward at this particular time to ensure that that strong relationship that exists between the United States and CARICOM continues, but within a framework that would redound to the benefit of both countries. And so the details of that will come after that meeting would have had, and that planning is had as well. So I would say that it's in the very initial stages, but that I can come from what I just mentioned. And therefore, I would, any other Prime Minister, I think Prime Minister Holness, he's told me he's an economist, and he has been very strong on this as well. I think it was right. So climate and reparations with respect to the community. We looked at reparations, and I think in my opening statement I would have mentioned it, where the next meeting will look at what it is to update on, but we are very strong on reparations still, and so you'll find that in my opening statement with respect to that. On the issue of climate, we also discussed that in our retreat. We are still going to advocate very strongly on the issue of climate change and how it's affecting the Caribbean region. We have to advocate very strongly for ourselves. Look at what happened in Jamaica recently, one of the worst hurricanes ever experienced in the whole region. That can happen to any of us at any given time. Look at what happened in the Grenadines, St. Vincent, Grenada. And therefore, we are living the reality of climate change, and we will continue as a community to advocate for it, to advocate for climate justice, so that it can give us the best opportunity to deal with what we consider to be a serious threat to our community, to our development, and to our advancement. Thank you very much.
Did CARICOM support or endorse the United States military action in the Caribbean with regards to illegal drugs trade?
Right, you're asking about a question which I sought to answer at this particular time. You mean to St. Lucia? Right, good. Good.
He asked the question to you, and he asked the question whether CARICOM has endorsed.
Right, CARICOM stand on principle to make sure that anything that is done, this or anything, has to follow a particular international law. You're asking that CARICOM, with a CARICOM at this time, and the necessary investigation, necessary things are being done to ensure what has happened in the Caribbean. And so getting all of that information, it would ensure that the response given can be a complete and comprehensive response with respect to that. I would say that CARICOM by principle respect laws and all international laws. And for a more complete, which just recently took place, I'm sure that St. Lucia, and I know that St. Lucia and other countries that are being questioned have been going through the various investigations, gathering of information to give a more complete and succinct conversation with respect to the matter.
Thank you, Chair. We'll now take the CBC. Prime Minister J. Pierre, Crystal Hoyt from CBC Barbados. Prime Minister J. Pierre, you mentioned yesterday your hopes that the issues would not cause fragmentation within CARICOM, especially as it relates to the U.S. and the increased military presence in the Caribbean. And we know that next week, Trinidad and Tobago as well as Guyana are invited to meet with President Trump. Prime Minister Drew, is CARICOM today experiencing an unprecedented level of fragmentation?
Thank you for your question. CARICOM is not experiencing any levels of fragmentation. I think that this meeting demonstrates our commitment to CARICOM as a strong organization. CARICOM does not have a homogeneous, I would say, or a single foreign policy. That is left up to sovereign states. CARICOM might seek to coordinate, but each state, as was mentioned before, has the opportunity to determine what would be its foreign policy agenda. If you look at CARICOM, CARICOM is not a political union, and one has to also understand what CARICOM is about. And so Trinidad and Tobago or any other country being invited to a meeting does not fragment CARICOM at all. As was mentioned before, the fact that different persons within CARICOM or different states within CARICOM can have relationships that span the whole spectrum of relationships in terms of country to country and so forth. That can actually enrich CARICOM, but it does not fracture CARICOM. There is no instance or evidence that this is fracturing CARICOM. Are there some differences? Yes, but fracturing, I think, is a very, very strong word at this particular time.
At what point does collective positioning on major geopolitical issues, especially when it's happening within the region and it's the U.S. military presence and the bombing and the airstrikes in particular, at what point does that override national interests?
I don't know I think every country acts within its national interests at any given point. I don't know if you are referring to something else, but I don't think if anything at all would override anybody's national interests.
And good day. Marcel Thomas from the Starbuck News in Guyana.
What's this called?
The Starbuck News.
Oh, Starbuck. Okay, yes.
I have a follow-up to Peter's question and a substantive question. Chairman Drew, you said that humanitarian aid will be provided to CARICOM. You also said that you're a man of action. To Cuba, sorry. You're a man of action. I wanted to know specifically if you've determined what aid will be provided and how soon that aid is going to be provided. And my substantive question is that there is a view that the U.S. is promoting regime change in Cuba and that CARICOM is participating in this transition. There was a report from the Miami Herald that the grandson of Fidel Castro met here with Secretary of State Rubio on the sidelines of this CARICOM conference. How do you respond?
Well, in the first instance, I can't speak for the Associated Press or Miami Herald. I guess you'll have to ask them about that question. So I think I'm not in a position to respond to what they have written. And I don't dare think that I am qualified to do such. With respect to Cuba and the humanitarian efforts, we are going to respond on the humanitarian end in short order, within a month. We will give more specifics on it very, very shortly, but within a month, we are going to respond in a significant way to help the humanitarian situation in Cuba. So I think that is on the way, and you'll get more details with respect to it. All right, so to answer succinctly, that would be the response.
But you haven't answered my substantive question on what is your view on CARICOM supporting the U.S.'s purported regime change in Cuba?
You're speaking about purported change and so forth, and those things. I trying to understand the full context of what you speak. You refer to an article that I have not seen or refer to or know the basis of it. So therefore, with that, CARICOM has not involved itself in any discussion of such nature. As such, we are very concerned about the humanitarian situation in Cuba, which I've spoken about, and that is what we are responding to, and within a month you would say exactly what CARICOM would do with respect to that.
And there was no discussion about regime change in Cuba?
Regime change in Cuba with us?
Yes, with CARICOM.
No, we have not discussed that. We have discussed humanitarian matters in Cuba.
Thank you, Chair. Z's Broadcasting.
Good afternoon, Kent Fuentes, ZSAD. Dr. Drew, how happy are you with the discussions that were held on regional security? And based on the fact that we've heard that the Caribbean region is supposed to be a zone of peace.
I would allow also my fellow prime ministers to step in on this time if they want, but I would say that on regional security, I think we are strengthening our coordination with respect to regional security. And the discussions were held on different levels where we talk about countries and their responses. Even in the opening statements, you would have heard different approaches to deal with the security matters. But in terms of coordination and working together to ensure that the Caribbean is as secure as possible, I think that was advanced at this meeting as well. You all in the media, there are challenges, lots of challenges when it comes to security across the region. I think you all would have seen the level sometimes of violence that would have been taking place across the region. And we are asked to really respond to that. For example, transnational crime, which the Prime Minister of Jamaica speaks to significantly. The movement of all these weapons through the region. Those things were discussed. How can those things be stemmed or be dealt with? So the fact that we discuss it on this level, and the fact that we want more coordination among ourselves and moving towards that, I certainly think that there are great opportunities to advance the security situation of the region.
Thank you, Chair. Our final question for this press conference is from the Miami Herald.
Hi, Jacqueline Charles, the Miami Herald, and I'm going to apologize ahead because I need some clarification on a couple of things since this meeting is being closely watched. First of all, on Cuba, Secretary of State Rubio, we are told in his private conversations with you all, basically acknowledged what has been publicly reported, that they are in discussions with Cuba and not to give Cuba false hope. Josefina Vidal was here. She met with several members of Caribbean governments, including your own chairman. Could you please tell us what is your position today as far as outside of the humanitarian framework? Will CARICOM assist in some sort of transitional talk as it relates to Cuba? That's number one. Number two, in your statement that you put out, you said that you guys talk about structural migration. What exactly is this? Is this third-party agreements? And did the travel ban that two of your countries are under and Haiti under full, did this come up in discussions with Secretary of State Rubio, and what did he say? Sorry again. You mentioned team of three in relation to U.S.-Caribbean relations. Who will comprise of these three member individuals? The EPG with Haiti, will that continue? And then finally, associated members. We know that they've been here, they've been lobbying to be full membership. What will that require, and is there a decision on that? Thank you, and I apologize, but I like clarifications.
Yes, thank you very much. I can say, with respect to the matter with Cuba, CARICOM's focus at this time, CARICOM's focus, let me put it that way, is on the humanitarian situation in Cuba. And we are making steps to help to ease those humanitarian efforts, the humanitarian situation in Cuba. And that is what I've said before, and that is what I would stand by even at this point in time. You asked a lot of questions within your time, and I want to congratulate you on your skill. How can you get 5 questions in a minute? You spoke about and I will go through them, the migration matter. I think that really needs to be discussed as well. As you know, a lot of our people move to the United States of America. There are questions on how people move into America, how people overstaying, violating laws. The whole question that you brought up about TCN and so forth. But we're not even going as far as the TCN. What should be a coordinated framework for migratory situations between the United States of America and the Caribbean. We want to sit and discuss that matter. If there are questions that are asked by the United States of America or even by our own people that need to be questioned, that needs to be answered, I think we need to sit in order to discuss and really flesh out those things. So that's on one level, at least having a framework or the opportunity in which we can sit and hammer out those details. And I know you're asking about details, but I will not be able to give you all of those details because those details have not been fleshed out as yet. However, when we speak to it, it is because the intention is to set up that opportunity that there can be discussions that can derive solutions to all of the questions being asked at this particular time. Now, when you spoke about the 3-member team to deal with the cooperation framework that we're talking about with the United States of America, we have not fully determined who the members of the team are, even though some discussions would have been had, but that will be put in place very quickly so that we can start having those discussions with the United States of America so that we can start putting that framework together. You remember the CBI, the Caribbean Basin Initiative, which was set up so many years ago under the Reagan administration. We want to arrive at something even more advanced than that in terms of our cooperation to strengthen not only just the relationship between the United States of America and CARICOM or the Caribbean community, but also to strengthen trade. With respect to the EPG has done excellent work, even from the perspective of what the Haitians have reported. And so the EPG will continue to do its work in Haiti. And we are hoping that they can go up to the point where Haiti can have free and fair and open democratic elections, which the intention is to have at the end of this year. So yes, the EPG will continue its work with respect to Haiti. So I think I covered most of what you asked. I know you asked a lot.
Associate members. The associate members who want to be full members.
Right. So the associate members who want to be full members, we took that on board as well. There are a number of legal hurdles to cross because, as you know, their sovereign is mostly outside of the Caribbean. For example, the BVI, their sovereign is in Europe, for example. And therefore, there are multiple hurdles to pass with respect to what must be done so that they can be incorporated. So I can say the objective is to have, by the end of March or so, that all of those legal hurdles would have been crossed so that that can be presented to CARICOM during its intersessional meeting to be considered for full membership. So yes, we are advanced in looking at the upgrade, I would say, or the incorporation of associate members to become full members, but of course, premised on these legal hurdles that must be crossed in order to meet the criteria to be incorporated.
The chairman has adequately answered all the questions asked, but my intervention is to amplify one area of specific interest, which is the idea of a structured migration program. Again, conventionally, we think of migration purely from the legal issues, persons who are illegally entering. But there is another dimension of migration which more and more countries in the Caribbean have to pay attention to, and that is the depletion of skills and talent, which are critical to the development of the region. And so whilst there is a direction and a view as to what we need to do to either accept more involuntary returnees or to participate in various programs which the United States would be advocating, we also should be figuring out ways in which we can secure training, secure employment, and secure skills for our economies as well. And so that's the idea behind a structured migration program. Bear in mind that there are elements of structured migration already. Many of our countries do have what we call the farm work program, where our workers are on a structured program. For some of us, we have persons in the hospitality area who work overseas on a structured program. And I think we need to engage the United States and other countries that use our skilled labor in a way that ensures that we can also have the benefit of our skills and talents as well. So that's the idea behind. It's not yet fleshed out in all its details, but we have put the idea on the table, and there has been some level of receptivity towards it.
And just a clarification, Mr. Chairman, will the humanitarian aid to Cuba include fuel?
All right, thank you once again for your question. As I say, within a month time, we are looking at when the team come together, these teams will determine what would be the requirement, and within that, we will determine the humanitarian aid that will be offered. At this time, again, the details, as I've mentioned, would come. I know you're seeking the details, and I agree with you. If I were you, I would ask for the details as well. But as I told you, the decision was made to offer humanitarian aid, and now we will start to build out the specifics, and the specifics which will be shared as well with you. So I want to thank all of you, but before I make the closing statement, I will give the Prime Minister from St. Lucia an opportunity to speak about the upcoming CARICOM meeting. Prime Minister.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, before I do that, I just want to remind everybody in the region of the threat of climate change, the threat of hurricanes, the threat of changes in climate that can affect us, and the upcoming COP33 scheduled later this year. And it's very important that we maintain unity around the 1.5 degrees centigrade. We accelerate our readiness for loss and damage access. We coordinate our submissions and negotiation positions early. We strengthen our engagement with our partners and keep finance and debt reform at the center of our diplomatic efforts. It's extremely important that the matter of climate change and resilience never be put in the background, because all our discussions, our plans can be literally be wiped off in a matter of hours. So I just thought it's important that we keep that issue at the forefront of our discussions and on our discussions and deliberations. Well, St. Lucia will be hosting the 51st meeting from the 5th to the 8th of July. I want to invite everyone, including my fellow heads. St. Lucia is arguably the nicest country in the region.
I have the last, so I'll respond.
And
you respond on my behalf.
And we have some of the most hospitable people. So I would invite everyone. We're looking forward to receiving you in St. Lucia for the 51st meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It will be July, you give the date? Mm-hmm.
July 5th to the 8th.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. When you have a region where each leader can claim that their country is the most beautiful on earth, that says that we have a beautiful region. At least we can all agree on that, correct? So I want to thank Prime Minister of St. Lucia and his government, his people, who will be hosting us in July for the 51st regular meeting. Let me wrap up this meeting by saying that I want to thank the press for participating and its questions. Your questions were relevant, and your question is seeking to get the best information that could be had with respect to a number of issues and challenges that are affecting the community. I am not going to pretend here, and I'm sure you're not pretending, that they are not challenges. They are challenges. I've never hid that, and we have never hid that, and we will never, ever hide that. They are challenges. However, coming out of this meeting, acknowledging those challenges, we have worked together to ensure that we can confront them in the best manner possible. The fact that all the full members showed up, the fact that they were part of the discussions and the deliberations, and that significant decisions were reached showed that there is no fragmentation, but I would say more togetherness, even though there are challenges that we are facing at this particular time. And the CARICOM will continue to work for the well-being of all of the people in the region. All of the leaders are committed to that. We'll continue to work for stability, and we'll continue to work to do our part to make this world a better place. So I want to finally say to all of my heads, all of you, thank you, and continue to enjoy the beautiful St. Kitts and Nevis until you would depart and safe trip out. Thank you very, very much.